Week 6, Lesson 5. How do I monitor my comprehension? Well, we've learned and practiced making predictions, summarizing, and synthesizing this week. Today we're going to talk about and learn an extremely important lesson of how to monitor your comprehension as you read. So we're going to talk, so each one of the strategies that we've learned before is going to help you comprehend. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about monitoring, okay? Monitoring your comprehension. So before we jump into that, let's talk about some of the strategies that can help you better understand what you read, right? So we've talked about synthesizing, okay? Changing the way you're thinking, all right? Recognizing that as you read a story, your predictions are changing. Prediction, taking a guess about what the story's going to be about. Summarizing, okay? Where you're writing down the important details, either the main idea and 3 details about the main idea, or you're using the strategy, somebody wanted, but so then. Okay. We've made connections, okay, to book to book, book to self, book to world, book to media. We've talked about visualizing our work, allowing our brain to have pictures in our brains of what we think is going on in the story. Question and answer, where we ask questions and then we read to find the answer. And knowing that when we create our questions, we want to make sure that it's not like the red light questions where, your answer's right there on the page. We want to really make ourselves think about what we're reading. So if we always add the how do you feel, or how did you feel when the character, did this, or what did you think was going to happen when they said this? Those are questions that's going to really make you comprehend and understand the text much better. And then inferencing is kind of like making a prediction, where we take what we know, what we see in the text, and we make a guess. So all of these strategies are very similar, but we go about them in different ways. So, do you think you need all of those strategies every time you read a story? Well, of course not. As a reader, you have to watch or monitor your own comprehension. Some strategies are easier for us than others. As you read, you need to constantly ask yourself, does this make sense? If it doesn't make sense of what you're reading, don't keep reading. Stop, reread, and use a strategy. That's why I teach you the strategies. Reading is thinking, okay? So if you're reading a story and you're completely understanding it, that means your brain and you are just automatically using strategies to make sure what you're reading makes sense. We use those strategies when you come upon a part of a text or story that you don't understand. And that's when you can, all right, let me try to visualize something. Let me ask some questions. Let me make a prediction. Let me think about what I know and what I read and make a prediction. Those are the strategies that you use to help you understand reading that does not make sense to you at first. Maybe it's the vocabulary words, where you need to look up a couple vocabulary words, understand what they mean before you can make sense of what you're reading. So we're going to write this or draw this graphic organizer in your reading notebook, because I want you to really think about like the strategies that come easier to you than others, okay? And knowing that when you're reading, you don't sit there and go, oh, before I read, I have to make a prediction. No, you're already doing that, okay? Those reading strategies are for when you might not understand what it is you're reading. So what is our graphic organizer going to look like today? Good readers monitor for meaning while they read. I will ask questions as I read. I will stop reading and think. I will pause at the end of the passage and think, does what I read make sense? I will take a guess if I don't understand a word. I will skip a word if I can't figure it out and then come back to it. I will slow down. I will reread, and I will make connections to help me remember. These are great strategies for when you come upon something that you do not understand what it is that you are reading. We are going to be listening to a story called Winter Waits. And while you're listening to the story, I want you to think about monitoring for comprehension. So while you're listening to the story, you might want to write these on your whiteboard so that you can fill the graphic organizer out at the end of the story. But while you're listening to the story, I want you to think, what part of the book was a little confusing and maybe you had to stop the video and re-listen to it, okay? I want you to think about 3 words that you didn't know when you heard the story and how did you figure out what they mean? And did you use any other strategy to help you understand this text when you listen to it? After the story ends, you're going to write these answers in your reading notebook, and then you're going to upload them for me to check. And I hope you enjoy the story.